safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we're taking the quest. Join Tarsha on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and thank you for joining us on yet another journey. Before we get started, don't forget to check us out over on Patreon, where you will get all things Tarsha, because I'm all about the mind, body, and soul. So the extreme hip hop classes, the plant-based recipes, and of course, some fun tidbits from the podcast. So without further ado, we have another fellow adoptee in the building, and her name is Hannah. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. You have a beautiful accent. Where are you from?
Thank you. I'm from Ethiopia. I personally don't think that I have an accent, but I get it from like everybody that I know. They're like, "You have an
Oh,
accent."
girl,
Like,
own it. Own it, because you have it. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So my first two questions that I love to start with, and you can just flow from there. Number one, are you a transracial adoptee or a same race adoptee?
I'm a transracial adoptee.
Okay. And since you're a transracial adoptee, let the people know what you are, like with the blood that runs through your veins. What are you?
So
What?
I'm from Ethiopia, born in Addis Ababa. Both of my parents obviously are from Ethiopia as well, and then my adopted parents are both white, and they live in California, Los Angeles.
Okay, so you knew that you were adopted pretty early on because...
Yeah, so a little backstory before the whole adoption part.
Yes.
My adopted parents from California, they had a child who was born with 5 to 6 different heart defects, and she went through like ongoing heart surgeries and had a 5% chance of survival. So they wanted to help kids from poor countries who also needed heart surgery, and then they were just going to send them back to their country and with their family after their health issues were solved. But for me, I was living on the streets with my family, and I wasn't getting the proper like health care that I needed after my heart surgery. So after like maybe it was like 4 to 6 different times, they were having some struggles with adoption agencies and stuff like that, but they were able to adopt me when I was 4.5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
a
little
one of a
different.
kind story. That's real different.
Mhm.
And so at 4, I don't know if you can remember back this far, but how, because you were with your birth family and then not. Do you
Yeah.
remember that transition?
Yeah, I honestly I remember like when like I have an older brother in Ethiopia as well, and I have a younger brother who was born after I came to the United States, so I've never met my younger brother. But my
Okay.
older brother and I, we would go just like walk up and down the streets in Ethiopia, and we'd like sell gum for 5 cents. Like that was what
Gum,
we
like
did.
chewing gum?
Yeah, chewing gum for 5 cents,
Wow.
just to make money for our family.
Right.
I do remember that. Yeah.
So how does a 4.5-year-old feel to be with your family and then to be with another family who doesn't look like me and in a whole other country?
I definitely feel like when you're 4, you start to kind of realize like I'm kind of understanding life and how things work, but I still don't think one understands where they are or what they're doing. So when I did come here, I didn't know any English, and my parents, my adopted parents, they obviously didn't know my language that I spoke. So
Oh, girl.
we had a really like a barrier of like just not knowing what I wanted or what they were asking me. So they they took me to this place called Little Ethiopia in Fairfax in Los Angeles. And
Okay.
it's like a little community that has like maybe 4 to 5 different Ethiopian restaurants, and of course has Ethiopians. So we were able to translate, like, all she wants to do is sleep and rest. She doesn't want to eat because, I come here and all I have in my face are like soccer balls. I have toys. I have everything given to me, and like it's obviously it was too much for
It's
me.
overwhelming.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that. Um and I also didn't even understand what a house was. Like I walked in my adopted parents' home, and I walked in the home and I just pulled down my pants and went to the bathroom because I thought that was normal. I didn't know what a toilet was. So I had to really seriously learn, like, basically I was potty trained at like 4.5, 5 years old. I had to learn what a house was, what a fork and spoon, just like very basic things that a
Basic
4-year-old knows.
and
I
things
didn't
that
know.
we take for granted
Hmm.
because we live in a house, we have a bathroom, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So your did your I don't know if you know the answer to this, but did your parents not know that when they adopted you that they were going to have these issues that you literally had to learn everything?
I think it was a learning aspect on both sides, like my parents and myself. I don't think that they were aware of how much I didn't know, and like I said, the basic knowledge of a fork and spoon, because Ethiopian culture, you eat with your hands. So
Right.
I'm over here eating like spaghetti and meatballs with my hands. Anything that I saw was food, I just ate with my hands. So I think for them, they were like, "Whoa!" Like they were a little shocked. Um, and then for
Right.
me, I was just like, why are you giving me this? Like,
What's the problem?
yeah, like,
Right.
yeah, restaurants. Seriously, we went to restaurants and I would still eat with my hands because that was just natural to me. Like, it was literally, I
Right.
still to this day love to eat with my hands. So it was just little things that I had to learn all over
Yeah, that's your
again.
culture for sure. Girl. So take me to school. At what age do you start going to this American school? Because had you hadn't been to school either. I take okay.
So
Take me to school.
when I was in Ethiopia, obviously when I came here, I was old enough to go into kindergarten. I didn't do
Right.
preschool. So that in itself, like, was very hard, interesting, and different for me. I'm surrounded by all white kids and nobody that looked like me. I grew up in the suburbs, Agora Hills, California, which is near Calabasas, so it's like very well known to be white if you look left and right. So I was confused. I was super shy. I didn't really talk to a lot of people. And when I did start making friends, I still was an outcast. I have always felt like an outcast because I either didn't have the same hair as them, I didn't have the same, just, I would, maybe etiquette would be the right word. I don't know. I just didn't know how
Mhm.
to properly like talk to them. Um yeah, it was different, I would say. And I got bullied a lot too because, who's this
Mm,
African American who doesn't look like us wanting to
right.
play handball with us?
And a lot of them probably had never seen anybody that looks like you. Yeah,
No.
that was a culture shock for everybody, I'm
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Do you, as time goes on, you get through your elementary school years, are you struggling in school academically because of this? Are you doing okay?
I did when I was in elementary school. They put me in special ed because
Okay.
their thing was language and the language barrier, which when you're 4, you're still really like quick to learn things. So I
Right.
adapted English. I caught on super quickly too. Um, but within the education system, they thought that it wasn't enough for me to take regular classes, so I was put in special ed all the way through ninth grade of all of my schooling. And
Mm,
I was super ahead, of course, in my special ed classes, because I was like, I know this stuff. I know I can do it. This is
right. You
way
really
too.
didn't need to be there.
No,
They just
they just put me in there. And with this LVUSD, just their
and
system,
and
it's hard.
and with your parents, and again, you may not know the answer. Were
Mhm.
they not aware that academically, at some point, like she's fine. She doesn't need to be
No,
in there.
they were very aware, and they really tried to get me out of it, but
Okay.
with special ed, you have to go through an IEP, you have to go through many
Right.
different steps
Right.
that
Right.
I don't know, it took way too long to get out of, but my parents were fighting for me to get out of it as much as I wanted out of
Okay.
it.
Okay. Now, were they able to keep you connected to your Ethiopian culture?
Um,
Because you
when I
said
s
when you were little, they took you to. Can you tell me the name of the place again that they took
it's
you to?
called Little Ethiopia.
Little
Um,
Ethiopia. Did they keep
yeah,
you
so
connected?
I would say yes and no
Okay.
because love deep down my parents, but I don't
Yeah.
think they knew how to raise a child of color. Um,
Mm,
because again, it's not something that everyone's used to, so I
for sure.
acclimated to their lifestyle, their culture. Um, so yeah, I don't it wasn't really incorporated, but
Okay.
as I did get older, I was able to be like, "Oh, like we should go to an Ethiopian restaurant," or I want to learn more about my roots. So it was more of me bringing attention to it and they were wanting to explore it with me.
Now, let me ask you this question. I love that you're doing that. I've talked to other transracial adoptees and who were not asking to be acclimated. Like you said, take me to an Ethiopian restaurant. Let's do that. Do you think it's up to the child to say, "Hey, can we do this concerning my culture?" Or if the child doesn't say anything, should the parent say, should it be the parent's responsibility? What do you think?
I think that's really hard to answer because I do feel that every adoptive parent is different in the way they raise their kids. I mean, my dad has told me countless times that he raises his kids in differently, all of us differently, because we all need different care and nurture. But I do feel that
Mm,
adoptive parents should be more aware of what they're getting into. When I mean that, I mean like they should be willing to do it on their own without the kid having to say something. But
gotcha.
I also understand if the kid is willing to say something that the kid should bring attention to it.
Got it. Yeah, I wanted to know once you got out of the special ed classes and now we're in high school, because high school can be a whole lot of things. How are you acclimating at this point in the game? What was high school like for you? And are you
High
still the only little beautiful brown girl?
so I'm in college now, but high school I would say was very interesting because that's when you like start to like a guy or start to be like, "Oh, like, you start to just like a lot of things." And when it came to like
Mhm.
relationships, I didn't have anyone that I was like, "Oh, I really think that boy's cute." But when I did, it was a white boy who
Mhm.
didn't understand me, I guess I would say. Um, and throughout our
Hmm.
relationship towards the end, he became like very racist, like telling me like I dated you so I could tell my friends I dated a pet monkey, just like some very un just not a lot of things that I'm still trying to deal
Oh,
with, but they
man.
don't understand. Um yeah, so I feel like it was really challenging because I did go through a lot of small microaggressions, small racism things that I just thought was normal because I've already been used to it. So I didn't think that like it shouldn't happen. I was just like, oh,
Wow.
okay.
That's interesting. You had normalized it because
Hmm.
this is just what you had been doing.
Exactly.
Wow. And I know you just said that you're now in college. Are you still in the area or are you
So
someplace different?
I am not, I go to a college called Loyola Marymount University. It's in Los
Hmm.
Angeles. And I would say, to be honest with you, like now is where I've met like four Ethiopians already. I've met a lot of international students. So
Okay.
I've become a lot more diverse into my culture and my friends. Like I have a lot more colored friends now.
Oh, tell me, back up. Hold on. I want to hear about this. I want to
Yeah.
hear about how you've taken the time to be more diverse in your culture. Like, tell me
Um,
what that looks like for you.
I feel like with that, I've just been more like invested in just learning as much as I can about my culture. Like I'll just Google something that I want to know about Ethiopia, or I want to know
Hmm.
like what population is Jewish, like just like Jewish, Christian, religion wise. With my friends, they'll even teach me things. Like I'll explain to them that I'm adopted and all of this stuff, and they're willing and wanting to help me kind of find myself. So yeah.
Now, growing up, do you happen to know why your parents never took you back to Ethiopia?
Well, it wasn't on them, that's for sure. It was through the government.
Okay.
They were having a lot of
Okay.
issues, but it was not my parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would have liked to. It was
Yes.
other things. I
Mhm.
I understand. I get that. Did you feel, even though you had these racism things going on at school, home life and extended family, how did you feel growing up?
Um,
Cousins, like what's that like?
I was I don't know how to say this the right way. I feel like again, I acclimated to things very well. Like obviously if I can pick up and start over, I can adapt to a new environment quickly. So I'm one to adapt fast.
That's not a bad skill.
Yeah, so it was different. Obviously, I didn't say anything when I was younger, but the turning
Yeah.
point I would say with family would be like the George Floyd incident was when I was really like
Really?
it's when I started going to therapy. That's when I started to talk to my family
Oh,
about how I
do you
felt.
mind breaking that down for me?
Yeah,
Please tell me. We all know what happened with that. What were I can't even get my question out. What was going on?
um, it was a lot for me to process because I'm seeing all this. I mean, I'm closed up in my room with COVID, and I see what happens, and just
Yeah.
I don't know how to respond to it because I feel like,
Mhm.
well, I feel like I need to be more active on this, but I'm not sure how to be active. Um, my
Mhm.
parents didn't really know how to respond to it as well. Um, until they saw me go through a really depressed state and were like, "Okay, like let's talk about this. What are your feelings? How can we help you feel better about it?" And I told them therapy was a start and just talking to my outside family of like these little comments that you say like it's funny, but it's not really funny. Um just little things that I don't know how to explain it. Just things that you wouldn't think w a family member would say, but they
W-
do
w-
say it because it's more ignorant than anything.
Right. One thing I know I've heard transracial adoptees talk about when it comes to this incident
Mhm.
um, is that they begin to see people's true colors
Mhm.
because of social media,
Yeah,
and family and close friends would post things and they were just like, oh, this is how you really feel. So were you experiencing something like that as well?
yeah, I
Huh.
feel like with
That's
my age group with social media and George Floyd, like, that was a whole thing in itself
Yeah.
of some of my friends reaching out
Right.
to me, um, others being like, "Why aren't you posting about Black Lives Matter? Like, you're Black." There were just a lot of different things that I was receiving from it that I also didn't
So
know
you're
how to
getting it from
feel.
both sides.
Yes, yeah. So I didn't know how to feel.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned therapy.
Mhm.
So is this something you said, okay, I need to go to therapy, or did you speak to your parents and this is a consensus that you came to and then you started?
We all kind of agreed to it because I I've never been a person to express my emotions the proper way. I usually just kind of hold things in, and then when it gets really bad, I'll explode. But when I say explode, I mean just like get frustrated or cry over it. So I think that's
Mhm.
what happened with George Floyd, the incident, and my emotions. And my parents were like, "We need to get you help. We want to help you, but we don't know how to do it the proper way." So
I,
yeah.
I, I love that. And I think when it comes to that George Floyd incident, not only was it that, but COVID wreaked havoc on people's mental health because we were all locked up
Hmm.
and everything was closed.
Right. Right.
And if you weren't going outside on your own, my family, like, we went bike riding every day just to get out of the house.
Hmm.
But if you weren't doing that kind of stuff and you're just in the house and you're just consuming,
Right.
and then all this stuff started happening, and then you're on social media, it was a lot. So
Mhm.
I can, and it's, like you said, with your generation, that whole social media game, y'all take that seriously.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
it's
rough.
it's it's a lot, but it's also an outlet for a lot of people, and it also can be very dangerous,
Mm,
especially for my age. So I'm
yeah.
thankful for what I saw, what I read, because it helped me open my mind more about things.
So at this point now, are you still in therapy, or was that for a moment in time?
It was for a moment in time, but I definitely take different actions to make sure I'm in the right headspace by journaling, um, just like lots of affirmations, just a lot of things that I've learned from my therapist. And
Hmm.
one thing that she taught me was just to kind of, because I never felt pretty, like when I was growing up, I never felt pretty. All my friends were white,
Let me stop you
blonde.
right there.
Yeah.
Let me stop you right there. Let me give you your flowers right now. You are beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't let anybody tell you nothing different from this day moving forward. Girl, you
Thank
got
you.
it going on, girlfriend, and period. Don't let anybody else tell you nothing else.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done. I just want you to know.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't,
So
and I
like,
know, so it's mental, and I know, like, what you might see, but I'm telling you what the world sees. You're
yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Period.
Thank you. Yeah. I
You're
mean,
welcome.
all my friends were white, blonde, blue eyes, and the guys that I thought were cute would go to my friends. It was just like, whoa, until I
I
came to
get it.
LMU
I
was
do
when
get it.
yeah.
And the reason why I can tell you I get it because I'm same race adoptee, but my parents, I was in a we were the only blacks on the block at the time.
Mm,
I was often the only little black girl at school, or one of very few. So I understand what it's like to be in those spaces.
mhm.
I too went through the whole thing where I wanted to flip my hair back and, like,
Yeah,
because that's what you're seeing and that's
right.
what's quote unquote beautiful in the blue. I get it. Been there. But I'm so
Yeah,
far removed because do you see the curls? Do you see the neck?
I mean, I'm back to my or trying to get back to my curly hair because, I straightened my hair to fit in. I I pretty much
Yeah,
took
I did it
every
too.
measures that I could to fit in.
Mhm.
So
To
I
to
think
fit in. Been
that
there. I get
yeah,
it.
it's
I
hard,
get it.
but now that I've done it, I'm appreciative that like I went through that to get to where I am again.
Absolutely, because everything works together for the good. And sometimes you have to go through something to be like, to appreciate your next.
Right.
So I totally understand it. And as hard as it is, sometimes you gotta enjoy the process. And sometimes that process can be rough.
Yeah.
But sometimes we gotta go through the process to get to the other side. And it seems like that's what's happening with you, and it's okay. Like, I feel like you're gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be fine. So talk to me. Well, in my last question for you,
Mhm.
I want you to speak to that little girl who may be a transracial adoptee and is, in this family that they don't look like them. And what would you say to that little girl that might hear this conversation?
I would say no matter what you look like, how you act, to just really value yourself and how you even view yourself. Because if you're looking at yourself and feeling kind of down on it, I go deeper than like the deepest that you possibly can and see how much of a light you are, and to know your presence makes a difference to anybody and probably to everyone one day. And I think just to own it and put that out in the world, I think that's one thing that I would say to a little girl.
I love that. I love that. I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. This is
Thank
real different.
you.
You like your start real different,
Thank you.
but you're going to help somebody with your story for sure. And I want you to hang on just 1 second. So,
course.
family, on that note, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good. Oh yeah, what is the one?